All right. Welcome to HP Life. It's been a couple of months, but we're back, and we wanted to tell you what's going on in the life of Highland Park Christian Church, celebrate its members, and talk about our current sermon series and some other things going on.
Yeah.
But so just kind of catching up. What's happened this weekend?
Oh, well, we had a great weekend. We spent one evening with one of the Afghan refugee families that we've cared for in some ways, and they just invited us over for this huge dinner. I can't even tell you how big the dinner was. And the Maddoxes and Carltons they had invited to. We didn't realize they were going to be there. There was so much food on the table, there wasn't room for our plates. I mean, it was a spread. But just for them to express their gratitude. To people who cared for them. They made sure to do that before we left, but it was all about gratitude. That was really cool. Got to go on a little jog yesterday, which I had not in a long time. The weather was perfect, and the jog was nice. I liked some quiet time, but then I ran into a kid, no longer a kid, who was the first ever kid to come play basketball in our gym with me when I was doing youth ministry. And was a junior hire at the time. I hadn't seen him in years. So it was really cool. We just stopped running and we just talked for 15 or 20 minutes. He's going to come play with us Tuesday.
Oh, cool.
Can't wait. So I was just really excited to connect. And that kind of stuff is super life-giving to me. And our small group did some stuff with PECE, the Eritrean Church. We did a kids program for them last night.
Cool.
And so we thought that would be really fun to do one time. And those kids have lots of energy. Denise Miller was like, that was awesome, but that's why they have young people that have kids. That's why God made it that way. It was
right, I know that
a lot of energy. They have so many little kids. So like a bunch that are 4 and under. So
we had a good Friday night. We had Garrett and Emily and Joseph Nicole.
I heard about this game night.
And Angie she makes this incredible Mexican casserole that I love. And then we had a board game night, and
Joseph talked about the casserole. That was a hit for him.
Yeah. Well, and then she made brownies, and that was good. But that's life-giving to me, just kind of that community and just kind of laughing and even a little bit of the competition. But we won't talk about who won everything. But actually, I don't even really remember. But anyway, so that was good. And then I had a story told to me, or not really a story, but I had something told to me yesterday. Stacy Oxford came up to me at the tech booth, and she said that they have kind of like an in joke, and they wanted to include me in on it since I was part of the joke or the humor or whatever, that they've been watching The Chosen.
Oh, yeah.
And she pulls up, and I'll put the picture up on YouTube.
I know where this is
I'll
going.
put the picture up on the video, but they think that I look like Philip, one of the disciples, and that they say every time that Philip comes on the screen, it's like, hey, there's Matt.
Do you see it?
So I could see it a little bit, especially like I can see the way he squints his eyes and a little bit of the shape of his mouth and kind of like maybe the shape of his head. But, of course, he's either younger or just has darker hair and things like that. But
that's funny.
There's some similarities. So we laughed about that.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. But and just as a note, if you haven't seen The Chosen, it's such a good show. And I still hear from people that are like, yeah, we haven't started it yet. And I so want them to watch it because it is so cool and brings such life to those stories. But the other thing that we started last week actually was our Roman study.
Yes.
From Rome to Home.
Yeah.
And it's our big long spring series, winter spring series, and we've got a bunch of stuff going on. We've got the study book that's got all kinds of resources and helps in it for you to study on your own, for you to take part in your small group, and to take sermon notes and stuff. And it also has some guide in it, or how to get on our in-app messaging, which is pretty simple. If you have our HP Tulsa app, there are a couple in the top right, somewhere up there, there's a couple of tiny little speech bubbles. And, I mean, I have to have glasses. If you have to have your glasses to see it, it's tiny. But you click it, and it kind of opens up a whole world for our church. And it's our messaging. It's our kind of group chats and things. And we have other chats in there, but we have one specific for this, which is called Study Together. And you can click in and join. once you go in there, you do have to create an account. And there's two sides, conversations and discover. And the conversation side shows all the groups that you've signed up for. And discover side shows the ones that you haven't signed up for.
Yeah.
And so once you kind of get the hang of it, it's really cool to be a part of.
Really good conversation, some really excellent thought and contemplation about Romans, and people sharing some really important things. So I really enjoyed looking at that.
Yeah, it was really cool. Really, it reminds me of the church coming together in the marketplace throughout the week in the New Testament, and it's kind of like our version of that. I mean, how do you get people that's all over the metropolitan area of Tulsa and outside the area to come together throughout the week easily? And this is a way technology has helped us.
Yeah, it was great.
So speaking of extra things from Romans, we've got some extra things that we're going to try to include in HB Life. And I know you've got a topic for us today.
So studying Romans, I've just been swimming in research and study. There's so much. It's such a great book, but it's thick. And there's, my sermon notes, I whittled them down to almost 50% of that. Like, here's my sermon, and you can't just
could
cover
take every
everything.
verse almost.
And so when we're spending 18 weeks, it's not like we're cutting it short, but we're cutting it short. Like you just to study the whole bit. And so I've been really pleased to hear people studying along with us. But one of the things that I did not cover in yesterday's sermon, and I felt like deserves some airtime, is what do we think about God's wrath?
Well, that was just in the Old Testament, right?
Yeah. Romans 1:18. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people. And I think we have a hang up with that, because when you and I have wrath, it's typically not that good. It could be. There is such thing as, a righteous anger, but usually our anger and our wrath is bred from, selfishness or vanity, animosity, malice, revenge, like these things that aren't good qualities. But God is perfect. And John Stott says that wrath is his deeply personal abhorrence of evil, his hostility to evil. I like that, his hostility to evil. So some people have a problem thinking about, the wrath of God. But here, a way to think about it is, when somebody commits a terrible crime, if they get caught, your thought is like, good. When pilots shot down that spy balloon, everybody in America's reaction was like, well, good. That thing deserved to get shot down, But when justice is restored, when somebody is punished for doing something wrong, we're like, good. And that good could be spiteful, but it could just be our hearts that long for justice. And so what would God be like if he just didn't care? Like if you were wounded by somebody who deeply hurt you on purpose, and God's like, I don't care. Is that a just God? And so thinking of it in terms, and that way you think of like genocides and these horrible crimes have been committed against large swaths of humanity. God cares about injustice. And so his wrath doesn't make him vengeful and spiteful, but actually a God of justice. I've been reading a lot of Michael Gorman, who wrote a really great study of the book of Romans. And I just want to just quote him here. He says, wrath in the context of Romans is not merely God's emotional response, though it includes the dimension of his divine feeling. God is distressed, disappointed, displeased. But the main point is divine judgment. Human decisions and actions have consequences, both immediate and long-term, unless we think of God as apathetic about human beings who bear the divine image. So God is not apathetic, and John Stott says the alternative to wrath is not love but neutrality. So sometimes we think it's either wrath or love. No.
Right.
The opposite of wrath is just like, I don't care. But actually, love cares about injustice. And so the last thing I would just say about this is that God is not neutral in moral conflict. that God picks a side in moral conflict, and the side is the side of righteousness and purity and goodness and the things that we see. And so God's wrath is actually a natural response to his perfect, good, loving character because he cares about all people. Does that kind of make sense?
And I even think the statement of the apathy as the opposite really, kind of helps put it into place because, when you care about something, the opposite of apathy, that's when you've got your passion raised up, and depending on what that is. And so as long as it's righteous, as long as it's a good thing that you're passionate about, then if you're trying to defend that or care for, that's where that feeling of wrath might come in. And you don't often think of love and wrath being on the same side.
Right.
You almost always think about either love or wrath, but
yeah.
Okay, so that's good. And if you've got comments about that, we would love for you to put those into any of our formats, whether it's in our in-app messaging or Study Together. We'd love to hear from you. You can comment on the different social media, whether it's Facebook, or now we are on YouTube. And so you can also comment, like, and subscribe on there, find out when things are coming out. And that's it. Maybe what if we want to end this, we could just say, what is the best time for studying Romans and the best mode or way? What's the best way that you find for kind of carving out time for personal study?
Yeah, like for morning time, or for me it's on a walk, or for me it's while I eat breakfast, or during lunchtime, or I like to listen to it when I'm in the car, or whatever it might be. Yeah, I'd be really curious to hear that.
So you can put those in those chats, or you can also text us at 918-228-5718. And if you got anything you want us to pray about, you can also text that same number. But that's it for this time on HP Life, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.